Well, it was a great worship, wasn't it? Thank you for the leadership and Mark, Lady D. Studying through the Revelation. And we are now at chapter 13. It is so humbling to try to study this book. Try to understand what all the symbols mean and everything. They were used to them because they came up in a Jewish background where they had practiced this. It wasn't anything new to the people who received it, so they had it pretty easy. But let me just ask you a question real quick. There it is. Have you ever used the word hexakosia, hexaonta, and hexaphontbion? Yeah. I figure some of you, hexaphobia, hexatovia, whatever. I practiced that all week, and I know I ain't got it right yet. But that number is the fear of 666. The fear of 666. And the way you get to that number is take the alphabet that, of course, if we were doing it in America, it wouldn't add up the same way. But A would equal 1, B equal 2, C equal 3. Keep on going until you got to, in the Roman world, 666. And I'm sure that every one of us this week has heard this number being an evil number. I'm guessing maybe even some of us went to a grocery store or to a sandwich shop on one occasion, and we bought a sandwich, and they gave us the ticket, and it said 666. And we said, would you please give me another drink on this? Or would you please just cut this off? Or maybe we paid $20 and the money we got back in cash was 666. And we had to leave a tip. There's no doubt about it. I know that there are a number of people who would not even buy something if that was going to be the price, and I can understand that. I hope none of us really fear the Revelation of John, though. It's not a book written to us to scare us. It's a book written to us to soothe us, to give us hope, to let us know of a victory that is really going to be ours, that no one can take away from us. It's secure. So, even with that number, if we just did it in the language we knew, and all these symbols in the book of Revelation, if it was our background, if we put a dove up there, you would think peace, right? If we put an owl up there, you would think wise. If we put a bald eagle up there, I'm about to say you think Gary for long, but bald eagle up there, you think courage, you think strength, you think freedom. If we put a donkey up there, you might think stubborn, but you could also think Democrat, and I'm not trying to put those together. Elephant up there, we would know, refers to Republicans. Just, we're used to those symbols. And when John's readers got this book, they were used to the symbols that they were receiving. And so in beginning, this passage we're going to look at today in chapter 13 has its roots back in Daniel chapter 7. If we just went back there and read a few verses from Daniel chapter 7, if my phone stayed where it was supposed to be, but it didn't. Daniel chapter 7, Daniel is talking with the king, Nebuchadnezzar, and he is telling him what the meaning of his dream was. And Nebuchadnezzar had this dream of 4 great beasts. And he didn't understand. Nobody knew what it meant. Finally got Daniel to come in, and Daniel asked the Lord to give him insight. He said, yes, the 4 great beasts. The lion represents Babylonian Empire, where we are right now. The bear, he said, we got 3 empires after us. The bear represented the Medes and Persians. Now, it doesn't say that specifically, but these are the 4 that came in order, and they were all evil empires. The leopard with 4 heads represented the Greek Empire. And then the 4th beast with iron teeth, 10 horns, represented what we understand today to be the Roman Empire. It was the next in line. So these would be the 4 that would begin with Babylonia, which was evil, and go through all the way to the Roman Empire. And he said, in that time, something's going to happen. It's going to be something worse than what we've seen in a great while. So let's go into, I have up here Daniel 13, but it's really Revelation 13. So you just got revealed something. Then I saw a beast come out of the sea. Now, we've already been introduced to a dragon, right? And the dragon represents, Satan. Dragon represents Satan. Then I saw a beast come out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. 10 is a pretty significant number, and 7's a pretty significant number, isn't it? Completeness, control. And on his horns were 10 diadems, royalty, kingship. And on his heads, blasphemous names. The beast I saw was like a leopard, but it had feet like a bear's. His mouth was like the mouth of a lion. So all this comes really from what, if I had my phone done correctly, would have read in Daniel chapter 7. It's just a resemblance of what Daniel said in chapter 7. And John is now repeating the same connection with this. This beast with 10 horns is a ruler. And I'm going just to describe him as the dragon's assistant manager. This is the emperor. This is the leadership of Rome. And to it, this beast, the dragon gave his power, his throne, and his great authority. So this beast gets everything that he is from the dragon, from the devil. Everything that he has become, everything that he will become, the dragon has given him the power, and he's basically saying, I want you to exercise my wishes. I'm going to pass my wishes on to you, Rome. It would be other places today. If I wanted, well, I don't want to, but if I wanted to, I could go through North Korea, Somalia. I could go through all the, if you look up on your Wi-Fi, just the worst non-Christian places you could go. Those would be the top 3. Brother Hidayat would tell us Pakistan would be one of them, and they're in the top 10. So this beast represents then this corrupt empire. It's empowered by Satan, the dragon. And this power, this Roman power at that day, is going to do all the wishes, all the desires of the dragon. I saw, somebody tell me anytime I don't change it, please keep me up. So I saw one of the heads seemed to have been mortally wounded. But this mortal wound was healed. Fascinated, the whole world followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because it gave its authority to the beast. Augustine, in about the 4th century, wrote about this legendary belief of emperor resurrection. Nero was supposed to have died at one time, but then he appeared again, kind of mimicking the resurrection idea, and perhaps on purpose. We don't know all of that. So many held that this Roman emperor was the ideal situation, and there would be persecution against the Christians for the next 4 emperors who will follow in the line of Nero. Finally, they all do die, and Domitian comes to the platform about AD 90, sometime around the time this book was written. Some say 96, some say 92, some say 70, so that's not going to be vital to us either. But this would be like Rome, like any empire, when it's exercising its authority over someone else. And you got Pax Romana, you got the glory of Rome, everything is so great. And God's saying, no, it's not great. It is evil. It is a monster. They, the whole world, also worshiped the beast and said, who can compare with the beast? Or who can fight against it? There's no power. This world's amazed it's the beast. They worship the beast and the dragon who gave him his desire. They worship him. And many people believe that Rome was so great that they're going to be forever. This is the end. And even some Christians did, unfortunately. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. It's possible that under that kind of persecution, being put to death, I'll go into that a little bit more too. It could be that a person gives in. This mighty beast, but its authority, its power comes from the dragon. And that's the serpent. The beast is just that picture of anything we're up against. And for them, it was Rome. The beast was given a mouth, uttering proud boasts and blasphemies. And it was given authority to act for 42 months, 3.5 years. If you go back to Daniel 7, you'll be giving you that same number in number of days, 1,260. So the beast then is uttering proud boasts and blasphemies. And for 42 months he would do this. There is a specified period of time. God is not going to allow this to go on forever. He will, when the time is right, deal with the beast. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling and those who dwell in heaven. It was also allowed to wage war against the holy ones, Christians, and conquer them. And it was granted authority over every tribe, every people, every tongue, and every nation. This beast had total world control, basically, of all that was known. It is in charge. And then this verse, all the inhabitants of the earth will worship it, except all whose names were not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life, which belongs to the Lamb who was slain. That's an interesting way of stating it. Everyone's going to worship the beast, except those whose names were not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life. Those people would not be worshiping. Those people who had their names in the book of life would not be worshiping. And he says it's in there since the foundation of the world. That's kind of scary to some people. They say, well, God's already chosen who he's going to save and who he's not. I don't have anything to do with it. But that's not the God that we serve. This God that we serve knows everything, but he gives us freedom to do anything. Yes, he knows what I'm going to do. Already knows. But he's given me the freedom to do it. He can't hold me accountable for something I don't do. So even though he knows it's going to happen, he wouldn't appear to be just if he went ahead and brought the judgment upon us that a person may be due. It's either or choice. This passage is saying to you, you've got two choices. You either worship the Lamb or you worship the beast. That's it. There's no other option. Whichever one you freely choose to do, that's your possible. That's your purpose. That's your decision. Whoever has ears ought to hear these words. Anyone, here's more difficult words, anyone destined for captivity goes into captivity. Who would be destined for captivity? God has already destined all who reject him, all who would serve the emperor instead of him. They're into captivity. Anyone destined to be slain by the sword shall be slain by the sword. Who would that be? Christians. God already knows his people are going to be killed by the sword. He knows that some are going to be killed in many other ways. I may go into that in a moment. But such is the faithful endurance of the holy ones. If you're faithful, you endure, even if it means you're cast to the lions. It doesn't matter what it means. The decision that John is making here for us, or ones that he's putting out here that Christians make, that we would make if we're in this circumstance. In America, we're not. I'm happy about that. I pray it never happens. But in many places in the world, like I've already said, it's happening all the time. The faithful ones will endure whatever happens. I will not fail to serve our God, regardless of what happens. That is faithful endurance. And now we come to another beast. I will make more application of this when we get through. I'm just trying to make sure we go on time. Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. It had two horns like lambs. This thing's pretty modest, pretty easy to get along with. But he spoke like a dragon. He's got the appearance of being good, easy, but no, when he speaks, you hear the dragon. It wielded all of the authority of the first beast. Let's go back just a second. That would be Roman emperor, Rome itself, the first beast. This is the second beast, and it wields all the authority of the first beast in its sight, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound had been healed. Again, that goes back to Nero, the thought that he was a resurrected, whatever the name is, what's the name of the guy who's in charge? Emperor. Yeah, he is the resurrected emperor. And it's going to follow for a while until Domitian takes over. So we have a dragon. He grants his authority to the first beast, that's Rome. He grants his authority to the second beast, and that are those who go out and prophesy in the name of Rome. Most people would just call this the false prophets, and that would be who they are in the book of Revelation. You've got the dragon, you've got the emperor and Rome, and you've got those who say you've got to worship. Now, what happens if you don't worship and you live in Rome or you live in Asia Minor? Well, you know that what happens is either death or some other kind of terrible punishment. And it performed great signs. Remember, this is the book that is symbolic. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come from heaven to the earth to full view of the people. I didn't go. Now what? No, I got to go back. Thank you for letting me know. This one it? Okay. So it performed great signs, even fire coming down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. That refers back again to this superstition that Nero had died, that he'd come back to life, AD 66. And after that, the next four emperors just declared that they were Nero revived. They were from Nero. They were Nero, just in another body. All around the Roman Empire, then, you have these images of Caesar. Everywhere you walk, everywhere you go, every town you go to, you have these images of Caesar. And you're a Christian. And the law says when you see these images, what do? You bow down and worship. You bow down, you worship, you show your allegiance. And those who did not were to be slain. Latest 250, Emperor Valerian issued another decree saying that everyone is to be sacrificed that doesn't bow down to the images. As late as 303 AD, the Emperor Diocletian initiated what he called the Great Persecution, or what was called the Great Persecution. So we're reading things that happened toward the end of 90s, or it started in the 60s. We're up into the 300s and it's still going on. I guess I'd be asking, when is this going to stop? Lord, are you going to do anything about this? And I wonder about just the people who became Christian. They knew this was going to possibly happen to them. I became a Christian thinking everything's going to be great. A lot of people became Christians thinking they could be put to death. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast. Second beast, the false religions, gives power to the false god, so that the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship the image to be killed. So there's the message. You go around, you see the message, you see the emperors, you see the statues. There's one thing you've got to do. You've got to bow down and worship. Now, I can imagine pretty well myself, I hope I wouldn't, but I can imagine that being in that time period, I would be walking around saying, I've got to take care of my family. I know what I can do. I can go bow before the image, but God will know my heart's not really in it. I'm just going to do this to get by. Wouldn't it be better if I could just stay alive, if I just pretended to worship, but I didn't really, not really. I just made everybody think that I had. But God said, no, you don't pretend like that. You're either my follower, you either bow down to me and me only, or you're not my follower. Pretty strong words. But would be said of any God, wouldn't it? I mean, that's what I hear from the other gods that we hear about today in our surroundings. You either worship him or you gone. Allah, whatever. There are plenty of people at that time, unfortunately, who just said, what's going to be the harm in just agreeing to do this and get along? If I don't, look what's going to happen. It forced all the people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a stamped image on the right hands of their foreheads, so that no one could buy or sell. Okay, if you don't worship the beast, your job is gone. So that no one could buy or sell except the one who has stamped image of the beast's name or the number that stood for its name. Wisdom is needed here. One who understands can calculate the number of the beast. For it is the number that stands for a person, and his number is 666. So we knew we'd get to this point somewhere, right? We have this parody that goes back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, where God had his people wear, especially his holy ones, to wear the bandages or the signs across the head and on the wrist. And this is a parody of that. I don't know if it really happened or not, but it's saying simply that you've got to either show that you're worshiping the beast or you're in a whole lot of trouble. It's the betrayal of the Christ to do that. And most of the world would wear this number because if you're not allowed to, you can't buy and you can't sell. Okay, so decree comes out. You Christians, if you don't do this, you're out of a job. What would be our thought? Would it be, again, I don't really mean it, and God knows that, so I'll just pretend. I think really what we ought to do, other than try to pretend, is just make sure that we do what God says and trust him to provide what we need. He may let us live. He may not. We've seen lots who did not already in this book. Probably the most hated number in all the world. We talked about a while ago, if you go buy something and it comes out 666, here it is, give it back to you. Don't want it anymore. It has come about again by the numerical system of A equals 1B all the way through. And this is how they came up with this. And it did fit. It came out to be Nero. It came out to be many others, depending on how you went about it. But Nero was one of them, probably the one they just talked about. If you don't do this, Christians, you're going to be thrown to the lions or to the bears or to the wolves or to the tigers or to the panthers or to the dogs, just about any other way that we can totally annihilate you. Christians by the thousands, we read, have been put to death because of this. But if you don't, you betray the one who died for you. Pretty sobering. Then we get to this good part. Then I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. With him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Again, I remember the time that one of my parents said, I guess my mother, it's only going to be 144,000 saved. Again, keep this in the symbolic literature. 12 times 12,000 is 144,000. This means every person from the beginning of time that has stayed faithful to Jesus Christ, to God, is in this number. I heard a sound from heaven that sounded like rushing water or a loud peal of thunder. The sound I heard was like that of harpists playing their harps. They were singing what seemed to be a new hymn before the throne, before the four living creatures and the elders. Mount Zion is God's holy place. On their foreheads, you have written the name of our God. They sing a new hymn. Probably means here a new hymn in quality, as well as maybe a new words. But the quality of the hymn is far, far superior to anything they'd ever sung. It's a new hymn to Almighty Jesus Christ. No one could learn this hymn except the 144,000. In other words, if you went to a training school, some of them who sang would sing like me, and you think he ain't got a chance. But the 144,000 who had been ransomed for the earth, these are they who were not defiled with women. Ladies, don't take that as literal, metaphor for idolatry. They are virgins. Don't take that we can't get married. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been ransomed as the first fruits of the human race for God and the Lamb. First fruits were the fruits that the people in the Old Testament would gather to give to God. It was the best of the fruits. It was the very first. We're going to give you first, and we're going to give you the best. On their lips, there's no deceit found in their mouth. They are unblemished. That's us. Chapter 13 was kind of, I hate that. This says, we are unblemished. We have nothing that has not been erased by the blood of the Lamb when we stand before the Lord. So let me give you a few so whats and see if we can close this. I better close. In a world where success and power and nationalism can be idolized, we have to remember spiritual discernment. There are governments, there are corporations that influence allegiance at the cost of biblical values. Don't confuse patriotism or popularity with righteousness. We may be called to be patriotic at times, but don't confuse the two. Resist false religion and all cultural pressure. False religion, ideology that looks like the truth, it's very lamb-like, but it speaks deceitfully. Test everything that we do by Scripture, not by signs, not by the success that the people have had. Endure with faith and patience. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness. Live faithfully in this hostile world, regardless of what it costs you. Stand firm. In church, we have to encourage one another to stay strong in all the trials that we go through. We can't walk alone. I can't do this by myself. Live as citizens of the Lamb's kingdom. Despite the darkness of chapter 13, chapter 14 gives us that hope. Understand the Bible, the battle is spiritual. This entire passage says this is what's going on behind the scenes and we don't see it. Most all of it. This is what's going on behind the scenes and we don't see it. They are the forces that are bringing about what we do see. Be alert, be armored in truth, be saturated in Scripture. Pray daily for discernment and strength. If we're not praying, we might just get in some trouble. Choose your mark. You're either going to wear the mark of the beast or the mark of the Lamb. It could be costly for us to stand for Christ. But stay rooted in truth, refuse to bow, endure trials, and fix your eyes on the Lamb. There are a group of hikers who are trekking the Alaskan wilderness. The guide warned them that the area is full of trouble, magnetic interference due to large iron deposits that, if you just follow your compass, could lead you where you don't need to go. Don't trust any compass, he says. And then on the second day, one hiker insisted that his compass showed a way that would be easier. If I go this way, it's going to be easier than what you're taking us. He warned him that the way that leads is going to drop off and end in destruction. It only looks good. It only looks safe. Despite the warning, a few followed him. And they were never seen again. True story. The rest who stayed close to the guide, who led them slowly but safely, always checking the direction correctly. Father, you've given us a compass, your word, your Son. Help us to follow safely. Help us to follow regardless of what it costs. Because soon, Father, there's going to be a day in which you take us to be with you forever. And every little thing we've had to go through will mean nothing. Will mean nothing. Thank you for the salvation we have in Jesus. We pray in his name. Amen.